Good morning. I'm waiting for 11 o'clock, though. Welcome to Church on the Hill. Obviously, Rick is not here. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. I just want to take this opportunity to introduce you to my son, Seth, who slept in our home last night, and this time next week, he will not be sleeping in our home. He's getting married, so he will be a father someday, I hope. But he's quite the gentleman, and I'm really proud of him. All right, let's go. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures that fade, never enough. Then you came along, put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Hey. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, I know it's I'm not afraid. Show you my weakness, my failures and flaws. Lord, you've seen them all, and you still call me friend. 'Cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley. There's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Come on! Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you. Lord, there's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing. Nothing is better than you. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Come on! You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Lord.
Who am I that the highest will love?
My story isn't over, my story's just begun. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Bible's not the end game, the journey's where you are. You never wanted perfect, you just wanted my heart. And the story isn't over, if the story isn't good. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Yeah, in the Father's house. Yeah. Prodigals come home, the helpless find hope. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Prison doors swing wide, the dead come to life. Love is on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place, the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Miracle walls are quaking, strongholds now are shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. I say, love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Ooh, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Take your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Hey, lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Take your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house.
Praise you, Lord. Pastor Keith giving me technology advice. Look at that. Sorry, I just got back from your kiddos. So we have a few announcements. This Wednesday, we're doing a pool party for the kids at the Berryville City Pool, 6:30 to 8:30. We'd love to have your grandkids, your kids, so please come. There'll be hot dogs and all sorts of goodies. We also need someone who can help us grill hot dogs. So if you want to be there on Wednesday and help us grill, we could use somebody. So let me or Pastor Kent know. Also, next Sunday, we have something very special. It's a double celebration for Pastor Keith and Pastor Carol. In the morning, we're doing a celebration of their 41 years of ministry. So I know, right? And their son, Craig, is going to be guest speaking that morning for them. We'll do a little celebration for them that morning. And then that night at 6 p.m. over in the fellowship hall, we're going to have cake and little appetizers, and we're going to celebrate 50 years of marriage for them. So, yes. So please join us for both of those. We'd love to have you. It'll be a great time to show them we love them. I love them especially. Happy Father's Day. And we also have a video We're going to show you now about the fireworks tent. So enjoy.
And I think the sign-up is right back there for participating in the stand and in the overnight stay and all of those wonderful events out at the fireworks stand. Special help, how that funds the ministry for the youth through the year. Thank you for your attendance today. We welcome you, all of our guests today. Special welcome. We welcome Carol's sister Kay in from North Carolina for the wedding, and Wally and Catherine and Garrett, Megan. They come in for Raylan's wedding yesterday. I know I'm not old enough to have grandkids getting married, but that sure is happening year after year. I hope we get a break now. But, and we got more weddings. A special blessing table back there. Seth, it's here. Very close now. Look forward to next week. But for you being here, thank you. All of our guests, we welcome you. Those of you that are with us on Facebook Live and KTHS Radio, we welcome you today. Thank you for your faithfulness in giving week after week. How marvelous you are. Well, today we want to take a few moments and celebrate dads. It's maybe just somewhat different as far as application and how we share the service today. Reminded of the story of the 8-year-old boy walking down the road one day when a car pulls over next to him. He said, if you get in the car, the driver was telling him, I'll give you $10 and a piece of candy. The boy refuses, and he just keeps on walking. A few moments later, not to take no for an answer, the man driving the car pulls along again, says, how about $20 and 2 pieces of candy? Boy tells the man, just leave me alone. He just keeps on walking. Still further down the road, the man pulls over to the side of the road and he says, okay, this is my final offer. I'll give you $50 and all the candy you can eat. The little boy stops. He goes to the car and he leans in the window and he said, look, you bought that Ford, Dad. You'll have to live with it. What can I say? Yeah. I don't think I ever had to pay my kids or my bride to ride with me if it was a Ford or otherwise. My brother, that's a whole different story. He's a Chevy man, just like some of you out here are. I think it was 1979, he bought a brand new Ford Thunderbird. Heritage. That real nice one. I moved here in 1980, and when I got here, I was driving an old Chevrolet. It wasn't that old. I mean, it was a Chevrolet, and it was a good one. Thank you, sir. And with that, he took one look at that car, and he said, you need a better car, and he just traded me. Charged me very little difference. What a wonderful car that wound up being. I didn't really understand until years later, he just didn't want to drive a Ford. So he and Carol have some interesting discussions concerning what they drive. Although I do think some parents or fathers tend to bribe their kids perhaps just to get them out of their hair sometimes, you know. Here, son, here's 20, go have fun while I go have fun. That's not necessarily good either. Someone said, we've given our children too much too soon, and in some cases, it's too late. So parenting, being a father, is some big responsibility. I think most parents' concern for their children is probably more material than it is spiritual, and if they're doing okay materially, making a living, then they don't tend to worry about them too much. But, you know, we don't want to ever forget God in the formula. That's so important. As a young boy came to Sunday school, he was late. His teacher knew that he was usually very prompt and asked him if anything was wrong. The boy said, no. Not a very nice answer. Said that he was going fishing, but his dad told him that he really needed to go to church. Teacher was very impressed, and she asked the boy if his dad had explained to him why it was more important for him to go to church than to go fishing. To which the boy replied, well, yes, he did. Dad said he didn't have enough bait for both of us. That sounds sadly like some fathers. Charles Francis Adams, who was a 19th century political figure, diplomat, kept a diary. One day he entered these words in his diary. Went fishing with my son today, a day wasted. His son, Brooke Adams, also kept a diary, which is still in existence. On that same day, Brooke Adams made this entry in his diary. Went fishing with my father, the most wonderful day of my life. You never know the impact you're really having, guys, and how important time is. One day, shortly after the birth of their new baby, mother had to go to run some errands. So the proud papa stayed at home to watch his wonderful new son. And soon after the mother left, the baby started to cry. Probably several of us fathers have been in that place. Father did everything he could to put the baby out of its misery so it would at least stop crying. Finally, the dad got so worried, he decided he's going to have to take that baby to the doctor. The doctor listened to the father and all that he'd done trying to get the baby from crying. And so the doctor started examining the baby's ears and his chest, and finally got down to the diaper area. And when he undid the diaper, he found out that indeed the diaper was full. The doctor said, here's the problem. He needs a change. The father was very perplexed. He said, but the diaper package says it's good for up to 10 pounds. Yeah. Well, I guess I better get serious. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 2. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise. We're commanded by our Heavenly Father to honor our earthly fathers and mothers. So not only are we commanded to do this, we should want to do this. And there's some of you here today because you've come to honor your father and you're here with your father, and thank you for being here. My father, Floyd Butler, was not a perfect father, but he was a good father. He provided for me and our family, and he really put forth tremendous effort to guide our lives the best he could. And I look back so many times with such appreciation. I know I had to say it wasn't perfect, but boy, he's very close. And I was really, really a blessed son. And my brother and I do agree on this. We were so blessed. Today I want to just take a few moments and share with you on three particular things, the first being a father's instruction. Proverbs 1:8 says, "Listen, my son, to your father's instruction and do not forsake your mother's teaching." A father's instruction and a mother's teaching. Could it be that a father tells and a mother teaches? Instruction has to include both telling and teaching aspects. Proverbs 4:1, "Listen, my sons, to the father's instruction. Pay attention and gain understanding." You ever wonder why these scriptures pointed to sons and not to daughters? Maybe we sons have more to learn than the daughters. Maybe we're harder to raise. My mother never had the privilege of raising a daughter. She just had two sons. That's the reason she loves her daughter-in-laws so much. Pay attention. Good instruction. Will Rogers had 4 children. He was probably one of the greatest political brains of wit for the country that we've ever known. Will Rogers Jr. lived from 1911 to 1993, starred with his father in 2 feature movies and was a war hero, successful actor and congressman. Mary Rogers, 1913 to 1989, was a Broadway actress. Jim Rogers, 1915 to 2000, after starring in some cowboy movies as a young man, spent his life as a horse and cattle rancher. Betty and Will Rogers' youngest son, Fred, died of diphtheria when he was 2. But here's some of the advice which he no doubt gave to his children along life's journey. Some interesting things that he said. For instance, never slap a man who's chewing tobacco. Never kick a cow chip on a hot day. There are 2 theories, he said, to arguing with a woman. Neither works. He said, never miss a good chance to shut up. Always drink upstream from the herd. He said, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. He said, the quickest way to double your money is to fold it and put it back in your pocket. He said, good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. Pretty brilliant, huh? He said, if you're riding ahead of the herd, take a look back every now and then to be sure they're still there. He said, letting the cat out of the bag is a whole lot easier than putting it back in. He said, after eating an entire bull, a mountain lion felt so good that he started roaring. He kept roaring and roaring and roaring until a hunter came along and shot him. He said, the moral of this story is when you're full of bull, keep your mouth shut. What kind of instruction did your dad give you? I'm sure he instructed you with some things. My dad used to instruct Rusty and I. Many of his lessons I have used all of my life. Matter of fact, I have for you here a picture of my father. That's right out here when he's fixing this drainage problem on this parking lot. And he's setting the grade, and that's me, and that's Kent telling us how to do it, probably. Taught us many things in life, to which we've been so grateful, not only in the natural realm, but in the spiritual realm. So that's why I say I'm blessed. I found that, and thank you, Shanti, for being able to get it on there for me this morning. Brought back a lot of memories on this Father's Day. How blessed I have really been. Reminded the story of a mother that said, while I was driving, my 7-year-old daughter, Katie, kept encouraging me to go faster. I explained to her that I was already going the speed limit and could not legally drive any faster. Not satisfied with the reasoning, Katie replied, "You need to get a car like Dad's. It has a faster speed limit." We parents do teach or instruct our children in many, many ways. And if you've learned some good Christian things from your father, you need to thank God for him if he's still alive. Part of what I want to do today, I'm going to bring some fathers up. Dave, would you come at this time? To share with you, just briefly, some things in their life and their journey with their fathers that has certainly made a difference for them in their journey. Dave Carell's sharing the first.
First, I want to say, you all that do know me, you know I shoot from the hip and have a good time, but I'm not used to standing up in front of people talking. I had a great dad, and I had cause to read this here a few weeks ago, and I told Pastor that if it was any benefit to him that I would be happy to read it. So here it is. It said, "Dad, it's Sunday, February 15th. I talked to you today. Your spirits were pretty good, but you had run out of strength. You said in our conversation that you had gotten to the end of the line. Dad, I took that to mean that you were thinking that the time had come that you had on earth here was short. I know you always said that you were going to live to be 120 years old. That would be quite a milestone if you did. Dad, since you got saved and saw the face of Jesus in your church in Michigan, your goal in life was to get people saved and how to help them live a victorious life on this earth. You've been truly an amazing example of what it means to have a heart of love for your fellow man. I watched you help many people by taking them into our home. I have always admired your ability to always speak well of others and your unwillingness to listen to others talk bad about others. You took time to help me to do several things that went over and above what would have been expected for a dad to do. Dad, you have always been an optimist. I've always told people that I had a dad who would give you the shirt off his back. Dad, I want you to know how much I love you and have admired you. If 90 years old turns out to be your 120, I want you to look forward to being with Jesus. That just means you'll get there a little sooner than you thought. We always knew that one day we all will get to go home to be with Jesus in heaven. I will miss you when that day arrives, but I will see you when I get there. Mainly due in part to you taking me to church as a young boy and giving my heart to Jesus. You are my hero, Dad. I will see you later. Love, Dave." I had the fortune to be able to speak to him a few days after he got the letter, and he told me how much he appreciated it. This was February 15th. He died on April 8th.
Amen. Thank you, Dave. Amen. Second thing I want to talk about today is a father's discipline. Proverbs 15:5 says, "A fool spurns his father's discipline, but whoever heeds correction shows prudence." It's so important that we understand that it takes discipline to train up a child. And fathers and mothers use various methods of discipline to discipline their children. But it's important. Jennifer from California said our 3-year-old son Jared spends hours playing in a sandbox. And he's told that the sand, where does it stay? Inside the sandbox. Yeah. One afternoon in particular, she said she went out to the backyard, and when he went outside, he was throwing sand out of the box. Deciding that this would be a real good teaching opportunity, should I walk toward the sandbox with a broom and a dustpan? And I asked Jared to sweep up the mess he'd made. After he was done sweeping, she said, I asked him if he had learned anything from this situation. And she said he thought for a moment, and he replied, "Mom, I think I like to sweep." Okay. Father of a teenage son said to his neighbor, Junior's at kind of this awkward age. He's too old for spanking and too young for analysis. The man said, I wonder what that age is. And as long as children are home, they are not too old to be disciplined in some form or another. Proverbs 13:24, he who spares the rod of discipline, and that may take on many fashions of what it is, hates his son, but he who loves him is careful to discipline him. Proverbs 22:15, folly or foolishness is bound up in a heart of a child, but the rod of discipline will help drive it far from him. You see, the method of discipline is not near as important as just being sure we do our job as we should. One man who attained a very high position in life attributed his success to two factors. He said, I was brought up at the knees of a devoted mother and across the knees of a determined father. Someone said that a child's character can be improved by a pat on the back, provided sometimes that it's administered often enough, hard enough, and low enough. You need to thank God today and every day that you had a father who loved you enough to take the time to discipline you. I never could understand at the time that it was happening when my father would tell me, it's harder on me than it is you. And you can't understand this, son, until you have children of your own. And then I understood what he meant. But how necessary discipline is. Brian Byler's coming now to share with us for a few moments about his journey with his father and how important that these aspects have been in his life.
Keith knows as well as anyone that about a year ago I lost my dad at the beginning of COVID, so it's been one of those years of challenge, but the blessing of it all is that I was raised in a Christian home. That doesn't mean I was a Christian. I was raised in a Christian home. And I still had to challenge myself to come into the Lord. I came into the Lord at 13 years of age. But my dad grew up in the ministry, involved in Youth for Christ back in the 50s and 60s, which was a huge organization at that time, part of Billy Graham and all that. But I shared with Keith on the drive home to try to get home to see Dad a year ago as he was in the hospital dying. I lost my prayer partner. And the blessing of the years with my father was he was my prayer partner. And to have a father that would be your prayer partner was so incredible. The legacy my father left in my life was the fact that I need to be the prayer partner for my children. And I pray for my children daily, faithfully, and my grandchildren. And that's something my dad instilled in me many years ago. I got a couple small notes because I want to give credit to my brother, but our life story as far as things go, my dad was a pastor, was involved in a Christian college, and one of the churches that we were involved in actually had a major split, and my dad had to stay on as the pastor after the split happened, and the other pastor was basically thrown out. But there was us 5 children, and my mom and dad, for many Sundays, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, would go to church 25 miles away from home in a small little Corolla, 4-door Corolla, Toyota Corolla. But my mom and dad were faithful to that, no matter what had happened in the church. But the one thing my dad really hit home with me was this, and how he was. Commitment to our Lord Jesus Christ, both in word and in deed. And my father was steadfast in those words. When he spoke about Christ, he also took action with it. And Proverbs 22:6, train up your child in the ways of things that they not fall off. And I praise my father for praying for me and my children and our family over those years. Again, support through my life, both in the good times when I made bad decisions and when I made good decisions. He was always there. My father never shoved his attitude at me I shouldn't say attitude, but his philosophy. He never shoved it at me. He prayed for us, but he never told us how it needed to be. We could always go to him. But again, the legacy my father's left me, I pray that I'm able to carry the legacy on to my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And that's the number one thing, is that we carry on that Christian legacy that our parents, have blessed us with. So again, for us, that's probably the most important thing to me, is that I carry the legacy that my father instilled in me. And I continue to be the prayer warrior that my father taught me because of him being the prayer warrior in my life.
Amen. As you're understanding today, there's a powerful influence that fathers have in the lives of their children. Third thing I want to talk to you about is a father's love. Proverbs chapter 3 says, "My son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commandments in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you." These words are important because they help us to understand more than ever the importance of sharing our life and our journey and demonstrating our love. And sometimes one of the best ways we can demonstrate our love for our children and our families is go to work. Be faithful to that we're supposed to be doing and providing. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "If anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for his immediate family, he's denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." So any way you look at it, a father has an important responsibility to provide for the family the best he can. That's part of loving them. There's certainly more to loving children than just providing for them. We understand that. But we understand how important that it is. The diary of Brooke Adams, from the note of that special day when he was 8 years old, that went fishing with my father, is the most glorious day of my life. That wasn't the only thing that he said. Through the next 40 years, there were constant references to that day and the influence it had on his life. The action of love. What did your father do for you? There are many fathers that show their love to their children in so many different ways, and that's important because that makes a tremendous difference in the lives of our children. John Phillips is coming to share with us on this point of the father's love and how important that is in the development of that journey.
Thank you, Keith. You can see I've got something here. Got a couple of things, actually. You know what those are? A pair of pliers and a hat. And 8 years ago, my dad passed away, and he was a big influence in our lives. I have a twin brother, Tim, who lives in Harrison, who's been a pastor for some 30 years. He's retired from that now, but we grew up on a farm up in southwest Missouri. It was a row crop. We grew wheat, soybeans, and milo and different things like that, and always had cows and stuff. But me and my brother came into our family later in their lives, my parents' lives. They were in their late 40s when they had us. And like I was saying, my dad passed away 8 years ago at 100 years old. So he had lived a long life, and a lot of things transpired throughout his lifetime. Of course, he was born in 1913, and if you can imagine what circumstances were like during that period of time. I know some of your fathers were probably older too, but it was a very hard time. Life was just a struggle, and he never talked about it much. A couple of years ago, my sister began to put together a biography of her life and my parents, which is excellent, because we'd always encouraged my dad to write things down because we wanted to know about him, but he never did. So my sister took this task on, and she finished it here and gave it to us a couple of months ago. It's a great read, but First of all, this hat, he would always wear it to the field. And this was, of course, back in the late 50s, early 60s, or through the 60s and the 70s. He always wore this hat. He was a guy that wore overalls all the time, and except to church. He had a suit or pants and a shirt. But he loved these hats, and what he would do, he'd get them dirty, then my mom would wash them. And then because they were all cotton, they would shrink, so she put them on a pot. And then she'd put them out on the fence post to dry. And I can always remember that, these little things. So that was part of what this story is. And when we were going through their things at the house 8 years ago, I said, I've got to have that. Had no idea that I would be sharing it in church, 8 years later, but here it is. And these here, because my dad wore overalls all the time, he always had two things in his pocket for sure. He always had a small pocket knife and a pair of pliers. And these weren't the original ones he's had, because these were made later on, but these is what he would carry the last 2 decades of his life, these pliers here. And they quit making them, and this past Christmas, as I was thinking back on things, I thought, I need to research those pliers. So I went online, and I found a bunch of them, and I bought them, and I gave them to my sons and my son-in-law and my grandson. And then I told them the story, how these pliers did everything for him. And I'm sure you guys can relate to this, but everything from cutting wire, taking rusty bolts off, or pulling teeth. Now, I remember that. Pulling teeth was part of these pliers' responsibility. So I would always try, me and my brother would always try to get the string out and the doorknob and something before he got home with the pliers. So we knew what was coming. But my dad, being born in 1913, up around Stockton, Missouri. Anybody know where Stockton, Missouri is? There's an area called Bear Creek. This was where he was born, and he would tell of times when actually Indians would walk through the property. And this was back, at the turn of the 1900s, and Indians would be on their way from one place to another. And I thought, man, that's kind of cool. And he had a very hard life. He was saved at an early age. His grandfather was a Baptist preacher, and he was hellfire and brimstone, though. It was tough stuff. And so his life was about doing the right things, externally. It would be later in life that he understood grace and how God loved him. And that was powerful, because our family has transitioned there, and it's not all about what you do, it's about who you know. It's about knowing Jesus. And he struggled with that. I'll just give you a few things that happened in his life. When he was 14, they determined they needed to pull his tonsils out. So they called the doctor to the house, laid him up on the kitchen table, and they took his tonsils out. Can't imagine that, but just... And then when he was 16, he was the one that had to stay at home all the time and work the farm with my grandpa. And so he missed a lot of school. But this time he was told to go out and work on the thrashing machine, and while he was under it, it fell on him and broke his back. And he was, I don't know how far, we don't know all the circumstances involved, but he crawled his way back to the house. And when they finally got home, they called the doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh, there's nothing we can do for you. You're lucky to be alive." And so he laid in bed for 13 months before he actually got up again. And if you can imagine, I can't imagine the different things that he went through. But as me and my brother come along in the mid-50s, they were involved in the Methodist Church in Jasper, Missouri. And I believe at that point he began to change his idea of what the Lord was wanting to do in his life. And so he was totally involved in the Methodist Church. We were there every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, every Wednesday night, revival services. It didn't matter. If the doors were open at the church, we were there. And of course, that's the way I raised my kids. If something's going on at church, we're there, we're involved. And I appreciate Matt. He's he's the same way. He's involved. But you know, one of the things about my dad, and it was part of that generation. I never heard him say, "I love you," never. But I never heard him say, "You did a good job." But you knew it by the way he treated us. He was always kind, never hard or anything. But I decided that I was going to tell my kids that they were loved, they were appreciated, and because they need to hear it. Mm-hmm. And even up until his last days, he still struggled with that. He could not just say, "I love you." He just couldn't say it. But you knew he did. And but I miss him greatly. He was a great man of God, and the disciplines that he placed in our lives of hard work, of going to church, serving the Lord, they're all evident in my life and my family. And my sisters and brothers are all serving the Lord, involved in their church or in a ministry of somehow. And they finally realized one of their dreams after he retired from anything was he got to go to Bible school when he was close to 70. And that was part of their dream, my mom and his dream. And they went to Rhema Bible Training Center in Tulsa. So quite a life that was lived. And you know, several of you have met him over the years. You know, he came to church here a few times. He attended church at my brother's church. I don't know why, because I was his favorite, and but that's what he chose to do. And gosh, you know, I know Dennis. Dennis has met him, and he was part of his life too there for a little bit. And so I remember one time they come up to church. Craig was youth pastor, and he was down here in this somebody's lot over here, and they were shooting water balloons up. And myself and my dad and my mom walked out of the church, and it almost hit us. I mean, it was right there. My dad said, that's interesting. But again, you know, I praise God for my dad, all he instilled in my life, and the discipline. He was the disciplinarian in the family. My mom said, "Just wait till your dad gets home," and we knew exactly what that meant. Yeah. But you know, there's just a high amount of respect for him and his love for his family and all that he did for us. All right.
Well, maybe we could all say, I learned it from my dad. Did you appreciate these sharing today? And how significant in knowing their life and where they've come from. As we prepare to worship, I want you to keep your heart and mind toward what God is saying to you in your life. Reminded the story of the winter day a man found it necessary to go see a neighbor who had lived beyond a real steep and rugged mountain. He climbed the dangerous trail for some time through drifted snow. Suddenly on that journey, he heard a voice behind him call out and said, "Be careful, Daddy. I'm walking in your steps." I'll promise you, guys, someone's watching. Someone's following you. And they too, in years to come, will share testimonies like you've heard today, because you have had such a positive influence on their life. Thank you again for being here today. They're coming to sing after we dismiss the service. Men, I think we got enough for all the men, fathers and the men. If you'll visit the table back there, they've prepared something special for you. We love having you with us at Church on the Hill.
dead of night and you tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. And I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers. Only you provide, 'cause you know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. Love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are. And I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. And you're perfect in all of your ways. perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways. You're perfect in all of your ways to us. Done just a little bit early, guys. Glad that everyone is here. It remind you, go to the table back there, get a treat. Have a great day, and if you do still have your dad, tell him you love him. And your mom. Anyway, thank you for being here today. We love you all. It's an honor, a privilege to be here singing, to lead in worship.